Right, so we had no requests for local board input. We have no extraordinary items, and we now move to the Cco Quarterly update. We've got Perrin and Noah, I think I've seen, from Auckland Unlimited, who are going to talk about their presentation they're giving us. I will just acknowledge before they start, just quickly, I see Alec in the background there. Won't be official on the minutes, but I just want to acknowledge that this next week is Alec Tang's last week with us at Auckland Council as our Chief Sustainability Officer. And we've really appreciated all the work he's done for Tamaki Makaurau and Auckland Council. And we are very aware of the hours that have gone into creating and building and passing Te Tarakia Tawhiri and everything that's gone into the 10-year budget and all the other things you do over and above your council hours to spread the message for climate change and reducing our carbon emissions. We will miss you a lot, but we think Kāinga Ora is very lucky to have you on board, and I'm sure we'll be grabbing your expertise in whatever way we can in the future. So just before we went on to the main agenda, just want to acknowledge Alec Tang with a round of applause.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I don't know why we shouldn't actually acknowledge on the record our thanks to the incredible service that that Alec has given us over the period of time that we've actually delivered on the Climate Action Plan and the work that he has led with his team to take us to where we got to. So if you want to move that, I'll second it. I'm sure we can fit it into the standing orders some way or other, and we can then pass it by acclamation again.
Okay, cool. Yes, we will have that recorded in the minutes, and I'll move, and the Mayor will second. Councillor Simpson would like to say something.
Yeah, I would just like to acknowledge what you've said, Mr. Chair, and you, Your Worship. The bit that I'd just like to add, Alec, is the input that you have given during the LTP conversation on webinars, etc. That was been really helpful. And it's always been challenging. These things are always at night and in personal time, but I just want to acknowledge that from my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. You don't want to say anything, Alec? No. Okay. Just in case, since it's. But yeah, once again, just thank you very much, and we acknowledge, the huge amount of work and the public-facing role you've actually had for climate change for Tamaki, but also Te Tarakia Tawhiri, and what you've put in. There'll be a long-lasting legacy there. So thank you very much. All those in favour? Aye. Those opposed? Councillor Simpson says you must stay. Cool. Thank you. Now we move back to Auckland Unlimited, and I'm sure you would agree that was worth delaying your time a bit. So, Perrin.
Morena koutou. I'm Perrin. I work for Auckland Unlimited, and I just wanted to reiterate what you just said as well. It's a big loss for us as well. I work with Alec at Chief Sustainability Office for about 4 years. We started around the same time. And I also worked on the Auckland Climate Plan, Te Tarakia Tawhiri, and moved to Auckland Unlimited. But we really enjoyed his support and work with us as a CCO as well. So you will be missed, Alec. But I know how to find them. So it's no problem. I just wanted us to introduce ourselves first. Amanda.
Kia ora, I'm Amanda Pearson, Climate Change and Sustainability Advisor in Perrin's team at Auckland Unlimited.
Good morning, Noah Maffett. I headed up strategy at Legacy AT, now Auckland Unlimited, and which includes the sustainability and climate innovation components, and really just here for moral support and to let you listen to the real experts here.
So thanks for your time this morning. I moved to Legacy AT about 1.5 years ago and took on the kind of building a climate change portfolio work program for AT and also building a corporate sustainability kind of portfolio for AT. At the time that I moved, we were working on the economy chapter priority of Te Tarakia Tawhiri, and being an economic development agency, we are co-leading the economy chapter, and all the work we do, we will be aligning that with Auckland Plan 2050 and also Te Tarakia Tawhiri. I was just kind of reflecting why we're doing the work. I don't think we need to make a business case about this anymore. We know that we are at a state of emergency, both at local government and central government. We are going to be delivering our plan, Auckland Climate Plan, Te Tariki Atawhiri, and we do have to do it as soon as we can because we need to be doing our bit to achieve the 1.5 degree temperature increase, and that would be the limit for us to limit the damage to our planet and our country. The way we approach climate change and sustainability at Auckland Unlimited, it's twofold. We concentrate on internal work, which is our corporate sustainability and climate action internally, and also on the external bit, we focus on delivering Auckland Climate Plan and trying to make Auckland a more resilient city in terms of our economy. And all of the work we do, as I said, it will align with Te Tariki Atawhiri. So I've separated the internal and external work. There's a lot of material on each slide, so I'll just pull out a couple of items from each. As an internal perspective, we will be measuring our emissions, Auckland Unlimited, and it will be our first year we're doing it as one organization. And also Amanda will be touching on that later on. We will be considering our risk in terms of climate change as well as for our assets and also for our services. And being an organization that we deliver events, we sponsor events, and we host events, waste is quite a key element for us in terms of sustainability. So having ambitious targets is quite key for us. In terms of our external work, a lot of our work focuses on the economy chapter, as I mentioned before, of Te Tariki Atawhiri. We want to support businesses in the transition to a low carbon resilient economy. For example, helping them with training packages, how they could move to a resilient economy. And we will touch on some of the projects we've been doing in this area as well and down the track. And also working on different sectors as an EDA, for example, a visitor economy or tourism sector. We're supporting our destination team colleagues in developing a climate focused plan of how they could be a more resilient and low emission sector, knowing that we're such a far away destination in terms of our country. What does that mean for us? And having people coming all the way to visit our country, how do we manage to make the environmental impacts on our country? How do we minimize it and manage it? Just like to move into some example in internal work, corporate sustainability work we've been doing. So I'll just hand it over to Amanda to go over those.
Thanks, Perrin. So we were on track this year to achieve the Toitu Carbon Zero certification for Auckland Lantern Festival. It was going to be the largest festival to have achieved that particular certification, so we were really excited about that. But as you'll know, unfortunately, that couldn't go ahead due to COVID-19 lockdowns. But we have been able to transfer learnings, and we're going to do the same for Diwali later on this year. As Perrin mentioned, we also are looking at doing a new baseline for Auckland Unlimited. On the screen you can see a few numbers there from both ATEED's first emissions inventory from last year and last year's Legacy RFA footprint. They've been doing it under the Carbon Reduce program for a couple of years. So we'll be, we've started collecting data for that. The audit will be in July, and then following that we'll work on a emissions reductions and initiatives plan across the organisation. And just briefly again, there's a lot on that slide, so I'll just talk to a couple of points there. We, in the context of post-COVID-19 2020 economic recovery, we developed a tool to assist business units across Legacy AT to consider climate change and sustainability impacts in their projects. But we're looking to develop that a little bit further and align with the Council sustainability procurement activities going on.
So now coming to some of the external work we've been doing with our key stakeholders and industry. One of the pieces of work that we led last year and is still ongoing this year is doing a climate change risk assessment on Auckland's economy. We started the work pre-COVID-19 last year, and it went to a stop. As we know, we went to first lockdown, and we continued doing the work. We decided this was really important in terms of economic recovery. And we did a disk-based analysis of our risk, climate change risk on Auckland's economy, and what does that mean in terms of as we recover and reinvest in our economy. Second phase of the work is ongoing right now and is around industry engagement, and we're also looking at Maori businesses and how climate risk specifically affects them, and that's being done through desk-based analysis and also a series of interviews with EB commercial managers and some of the Maori businesses. So there's quite a lot of information on this slide. Where I like to start from is saying why we thought it was really important to do this work was, as you see, Dr. Rod Carr mentioned that an economic stimulus package can either speed up or stall our progress on climate change. So we do need to make the right decisions as we invest in our economy to be climate resilient and move to a low carbon economy. So what we did was working with consultants named AECOM. AECOM did the work for the national government, central government, and as you might be aware, they did national risk assessment for the whole country last year. We aligned our methodology with the national risk assessment. So what we did additional to what government did was government focused on climate change physical impacts, which is around like extreme weather. And we added the transitional drivers, transitional risk as well. We know that we're going to have to move to a low carbon economy, and the transitional drivers could be, for example, putting a cost on our emissions. What does that mean to the industries and organizations and businesses in Auckland? So we looked at both of them as physical and transitional drivers. We looked at the risks and then prioritized the risk and came up with a series of recommended actions that as we recover from COVID-19, what are the key actions we need to take to do this in a more climate-friendly way? The focus of the work was on 4 sectors: food and beverage, from growth of food right to the plate, construction sector, screen sector, and visitor economy, which is our tourism sector. The work, the output of the work, it's got 2 reports on it. The first report is quite a kind of a heavy technical report that for those who actually need the details, and it contains the methodology and all the risk, all the details that we did throughout that project. The inside report that I've got a picture of it is online accessible it's quite accessible, it's quite readable, and it provides kind of key highlights of the work that was done and finishes with a series of recommendations in terms of recovery. There were no surprises in there except that it reiterating what we all know already, and also helping us prioritize where we need to focus on. Maybe 1 or 2 elements of surprises for me personally was on emphasis on screen sector. Screen sector is a growing sector for us, and perception was that this sector doesn't have high impact, but the research studies have shown that it has got impact and we need to be managing it in a better way. So we do need to support the sector to be more climate resilient and having lesser impact in terms of emissions. So currently we're working with industries and having engagement from different sectors, as I mentioned, the 4 sectors. We've had workshops and great representation and a lot of interest from people that we are doing the work and their interest to continue working with us in helping them in transition to a low carbon resilient economy. We heard from them, from the businesses themselves, as what they see the risks are, what the priorities are, and also what are the work they're doing currently, what they've got in the pipeline, and what they think the gaps are. And at the moment, we are consolidating the output of the work, and also the Maori business work that we're doing, the reports, there's a draft report in place. The interviews are happening right now in the next few weeks. Once we consolidate that work, then we can actually publish that work as well. Another piece of kind of the economy chapter that we've been supporting is climate innovation. So why are we focusing on climate innovation through our work? Is we know, talking through other cities, without innovation, we're not going to be able to achieve our ambitious targets, climate targets. And we probably don't have the massive resources that some of the countries got in terms of putting into R&D, but we do work very well through collaboration. And I've looked at quite a few examples overseas that have been successful, such as Climate Kick. Climate Kick in Europe, which we've been talking to the CEO of Climate Kick, he's come back recently and just lives in New Zealand, and said it's all around bringing local government and businesses and academia together to solve the climate challenges. It doesn't mean you have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of play you could bring to connect the right dots together and solve some of the climate challenges. We've had conversations with Callaghan, with University of Auckland, and a few of the large businesses, and they're all quite interested for us to convene the conversations and continue the work as a safe space to bring people together and have those conversations. So in summary, how do we see our opportunity? How could we help Auckland? First of all, internally, we need to lead by example. As Amanda mentioned, we do need to do the right thing at our events and have low impact, low carbon or zero carbon events. And also, in terms of being an EDA, Economic Development Agency, we are well placed to work with businesses to support them in the transition to low carbon economy, as you saw some of the examples of the work we've been doing. And we do work with foreign businesses to bring investment into Tamaki Makaurau. And our investment team is focusing heavily on green investment for Auckland, and we're supporting them in that as well. There's a lot to be done in the work we're doing, but as Noel mentioned, or I mentioned before, we're still kind of going through the transition right now in terms of our merger, and hopefully we can consolidate some of the plan going forward of climate plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a ton of work, and thank you so much for coming in and sharing it with us. We have, first question is from Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, g'day. This is wonderful work. I wanted to question the slide around thought leadership on climate change and sustainability, and I really appreciate the subsequent slides that went into a bit more detail on that. But how are we leading thought into the general public? It seems like we're doing a very good job of talking to people that are already kind of predisposed to doing some of the changes we need. But for people out there, they may not necessarily understand. So how are we doing that?
So the work we did on the climate change risk assessment, we've been quite conscious of sharing it on public platforms and advocating for it through our communications team. So we've had it at the news outlets and kind of conversation our CE had with, I think it was News Talk ZB. So we kind of try to spread the word that way. And also through our engagement, our business team engagement, that's kind of making people aware that we've got the facilities and also the knowledge to help the businesses as well. But our resources are a bit limited, so we need to be a bit clever in the way we provide that support. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Watson. Oh, sorry, Councillor Henderson, were you finished?
No, we can't.
Okay, cool. Councillor Watson.
Yeah, thank you. That was a very good presentation, and quite encouraging, the work that you're doing there. The comment that particularly resonated with me was the one to do with not reinventing the wheel and looking to examples overseas. So I think of some of the Scottish cities and towns like Aberdeen, for instance, who are kind of light years ahead of us. To what extent are their responses transferable? I mean, we always look at ourselves as being different. I think we're the same in a lot of ways. Are you finding that there's initiatives and practical initiatives that could be starting now that we could be picking up like really quickly, rather than the kind of sort of usual tortuous process we go through to come at what other people were maybe doing a few years back already?
Yeah, as Perrin mentioned, we're pretty deeply engaged in a lot of those conversations internationally. There are definitely applicable lessons here in New Zealand. Obviously, the difference is scale. Some of the Climate Kick received funding in the hundreds of millions, right, initially. So, we are operating in a different context here. But that said, I think there is a unique mix of how we as local government can intersect with the private sector and academia that is very much of and for this place. We hope through the LTP funding process and the climate action plan, there's a couple of initiatives within that that we're hoping to get some funding to advance this and move it quite rapidly. So in terms of what's next on the horizon, we do want to get there pretty quick.
My comment, Mr. Chair, would be that, from a overall council perspective, what I see the possibility here is that if we have groups like within Auckland Unlimited that actually can make some real tangible progress, that can be a blueprint for the other parts of council. So I certainly would like to, encourage this team for what they're doing, because I think that holds promise for the organisation as a whole.
Most definitely, and I know that the team are doing their best to work across the council. Are you seeing that grow sort of from the 10-year budget on, especially?
Yes, and definitely. I think the way we're looking at it is making the right partnerships internally first with the CCOs and working with key industries, businesses that they're already working in the space to bring solutions across the board. As you said, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. And if we do have to later on, we will, but bring the right solutions to the city and work with organisations to disseminate that. But definitely we have to work with CCOs to do that.
If I could also just quickly add, this isn't just a compliance exercise. There's real business opportunity in this space, and through our role as an EDA and working with the larger business community, that's an important lens to keep over this. Is Climate Kick, again, as an example, turned a lot of those ideas into real interesting business models. So we'd like to see how that can be applied here as well.
Thank you, and great question, Councillor Watson. Member Wilcox.
Thank you. Can you tell me what a green job is?
We did have a go at defining that, and it's a bit complex, but I did look at international definitions and what we see it as green job. And it's any job that it works in the climate space, that it could be adaptation, mitigation, making the city more resilient, or could be in waste management. So the category could be quite a vast one. But any job that it works towards sustainability, or we do have the definition internally I did it for our economists, so we can actually kind of measure our green jobs. It's a bit complex.
So can you tell me what green investment is?
Green investment is what is going to help our city to achieve its climate goals.
So what proportion of green investment are we seeking in total, in comparison to the total amount of foreign investment that we're attracting? And what mechanisms are we using or trying to use to influence that from a central government point of view? Because, the Overseas Investment Office, they do their thing.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to understand this. How are we trying to get this green investment, which I'm still unclear as to what exactly it is? I mean, green investment could be me investing in a rubbish dump, if this is the way we're talking. So I'm just trying to understand this part. Thank you.
Did you want to answer that, or you want to have a go?
I think it's an evolving space, and it's difficult to land on a precise definition. The investment attraction teams, as an overall sort of lens, think about the portfolio of investments with environment as a critical component in that. It does, to your point though, is taken that it does get difficult to make that super precise, and we don't have specific targets as a percentage of portfolio. But that is a space that we're continuing to advance thinking and refine.
You were talking about you doing a draft Maori survey. Would it be possible for the Independent Maori Statutory Board to receive a copy of that prior to it going out?
Of course, we have the draft report. I didn't want to share it here because it goes public, but I can send that to you to have a look at the draft report.
Yeah, just with Lisa down at the.
Of course, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Great questions, Member Wilcox. And also, our green investment for a council would be things such like our green bonds, which is hundreds of millions of dollars into things like electric trains and things like that, climate finance. Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. First, I just want to acknowledge Lee Wei as part of your team. He came through our youth council many years ago, so identified earlier as a bit of a talent. So my question is around when you talk about our tertiary education offering going more online, how do we mesh that with the kind of desire to get more people back in the city centre? Because I mean that's also part of Auckland Unlimited's role to get more things happening. So how do you balance that out?
I don't, the recommendation there wasn't to stop bringing people here, but I think offering that as COVID happened, we realized that we need to have other offerings on plate as well. And that's why that was part of the recommendation. We're
So
still quite
what do
active
the
in the
university
area.
think of that, or the tertiary institutions? Have you talked to them yet?
Yes, we've had an engagement with them through the risk assessment we did. So it is acceptable that we do need to have that offering, and some do have the offering online. It's not, I mean, people do it now, but we're quite active in the space of bringing students here.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper, and yeah, thank you for acknowledging Leeway, who was, before he was on the Youth Council, he was also on the Kaipātiki Youth Council, and when I was on the local board, and he helped us set up our youth centre.
We all want the reflected glory.
He's also my Facebook friend. No, just kidding. Sorry. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, really good work, certainly around climate kick. I've heard quite a few presentations around that at a number of locations overseas. Given that there are quite a lot of alliances and reference points, partnerships with other cities that we could be taking advantage of. I don't know whether you've familiarised yourself with programs, for example, that Italy has, that we were a member of, and our membership is in limbo right now. But certainly the Transformative Action Program, TAP, the Cities Climate Finance Leadership Alliance. There are quite a number of things that we could be availing ourselves of. Another suggestion that I've put to the council on a number of occasions is that we team up as part of water sensitive cities, for example. That could help really accelerate our water strategy and benchmark us far more with other cities. So I continue to make these suggestions, Mr. Chair, but certainly my observation is that our international engagement, with the exception of C40, has actually dropped over time.
So is that a question to the...
Yes, so I'm just raising those issues with you, particularly as it goes to alliances and communications with cities that are of a similar scale to us. Many of the C40 cities don't meet that category, for example, Aberdeen and others that Councillor Watson was mentioning. So just invite some response on what opportunities we have across that spectrum.
Just to clarify, opportunities in terms of partnership or on just using the expertise that have been used overseas?
Expertise overseas, particularly in instances where other cities often have already been there and done that. For example, until a couple of years ago, we were a part of a sustainable procurement program through Italy. We've dropped that now. I don't know what we're doing within the sustainable procurement space, for example. There are great cities, for example, Malmo would probably be the leading city around sustainable procurement. So what liaison do we have with Malmo in terms of what they're doing in the space? And I gave the example of water-sensitive cities. Yep. Are we advancing that proposition, which could save us a lot of money and accelerate where we're at?
I think that the first steps we've taken is just to have local conversations at how we could lead this space. We have talked to Institute of Sustainability XCE, the Climate Kick Europe, and also Climate Kick Australia as well. We will have those ongoing conversations if this hub gets established. As currently we're just doing what we can in the kind of limited resources to figure out the partnerships, local partnerships is what we can achieve. But we will definitely look into your suggestion as well.
Thank you. Councillor Darby.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, team. This is really good to see. This is very encouraging, and I'm just delighted to see this come from your organisation in its early childhood, youth maybe. But time is now. Look, there's a lot in here. and you'll be engaging with the private sector a lot. This is your responsibility to have a deep engagement and to be urging them to act more profoundly and really as well. And probably the realness that the private sector needs to be bringing to this is important. I'm aware of a lot of businesses doing the honest thing, and they're changing their structures, and they are facing the future, and they are real to the core about their climate goals. They're reinventing their businesses entirely. I'm also aware of a lot of greenwashing. One that came to my attention recently is a motor company called Mazda, and they are appearing to be environmentalists and supportive of environmental change and climate action in sponsoring a tree planting program, but at the same time, they're doing it all out of the back of a BT50 Mazda 3-litre diesel. No one's really calling them out. I guess what I'm saying to you is when entities come to you, when they come to your office, are you likely to look at how real they are, not just the initiative that they're presenting? And if they're going to arrive in a Lamborghini and park outside on the yellow lines and then show you a green initiative, are you going to audit those companies to ensure that they are real to the core?
I wish we could solve that one easily. And I think we need to, as a CCO, need to be careful of our reach not exceeding our grasp on some of this. That said, Perrin and the team brought together 75 Auckland companies talking about their adaptation just last week before last. Some of those were not the usual suspects of people who would normally be in the room. So I think we are able to assist where we can to help some of these companies through a process. And then as we think longer term and we think about some of the new initiatives we'd like to put into play, those will require partnership at pretty deep levels, and the vetting of those partners and who we choose to work with from the private sector, we absolutely need to make sure that we're operating with people who have both good intent and the real result.
Thank you, Councillor Darby. And just one last question from me, probably bouncing off that, is I was invited to the X Labs, I think it was a month or 2 weeks before lockdown last year. And it was really amazing to see. I think it was like 36 companies from everything from Fletcher's to smaller companies all working together. Are you seeing those types of opportunities to grow rather than like a council-based thing to spread that across Tamaki Makaurau? Like, are you going to continue that work, or is it it was more of a pilot at the start?
Well, XLab is more of a pilot, but we are looking at how we could, because it was quite resource intensive. So we're looking at how we could extend that through potentially climate innovation hub to make it in a smarter way so it's available to more businesses, because it was quite limited space for it. But we do need to make it available kind of citywide versus just a few select businesses. We are aware of that, Richard.
Perfect. Well, thank you again. I'll get Deputy Chair, you'd like to move, and I'll second. And just want to, thanks again to the whole team. I know it's been really tough with the merger and with, not being able to employ more staff and things. So all three of you are doing a fantastic job, and Leeway too. But the rest of the team, I know, are really serious about climate action. So thank you very much. So all those in favour? Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Perfect. Thank you very much.